After being eliminated from the playoffs, Kevin Durant endorsed second-year head coach Steve Nash, saying he is still the man for the job, adding Steve has been dealt a crazy hand the last 2 years. One way to put it. Shannon, you guys talked about this earlier. This is the first time in NBA history a preseason favorite failed to win a single playoff game. So what do you think? Should Steve Nash be fired?
Skip, you know I don't like calling for people's job, but I believe there needs to be a new captain of the ship. And Kevin Durant...
Was there ever a first captain of the ship?
I don't even know if he was the first captain. I don't even know if he's the captain of the ship, considering that they don't pay attention to him when he's... Kevin Durant says, you know, he was Steve Nash was dealt a crazy hand. KD, you was one shuffling the cards. You brought in Kyrie. You brought in James Harden.
I don't believe that. I think Kyrie brought Kevin to Brooklyn. Now, you can go from there.
Okay, James Harden.
I think he was the first to endorse Steve Nash because he
got the Golden State.
Yes.
Okay, you brought in James Harden. You dealt that hand to Steve Nash. Okay, when James Harden got tired of Kyrie doing whatever Kyrie wanted to do, the mandate, he's like, I want out. You signed off on that, okay? Everybody that's there. Because when you think about it, Skip, only one player on the Brooklyn Nets was drafted by the Brooklyn Nets, Mickey Claxton. Everybody there was brought in, and a lot of those guys was brought in after Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant signed off on all those guys. Now, everybody keeps talking about Sean Marks did a horrible job building this team. Kevin Durant escapes blame. Rob Pelinka, LeBron gets all the blame. Like Rob Pelinka ain't the general manager. He holds the same title as Sean Marks, yet he gets none of the blame. LeBron gets all the blame.
I believe you need to lump Kyrie in there, and then I'm good with it. I think the two of them get the blame, but I'm not trying to absolve Kevin of any. He should get
Kyrie places
50% and 50%.
Kyrie places himself in that battle.
He does.
In that situation, because he's talking about, we're going to sit down with Joe and Sean and KD and myself and map out the break. What? Hold on, whoa!
He even used the word last night, manage. I want to manage the team.
I'm like, whoa, bro. And that's see, he saw what LeBron got, Skip, in Boston, in Cleveland, and that's how he sees himself
that is correct.
As a KD.
I agree.
But I just don't know. I think they would, look, the Celtics had the better team, but they were coached better. Steve Nash, Doka was doing the river dance around him. It's as simple as that, Skip. He made no adjustments. At some point in time, I get it. He switched the lineup. He went with Seth Curry. He finally decided to play Blake Griffin a little bit. He brought in Dragic, and Dragic played a lot more minutes than he normally plays. Okay, but Udoka was doing cartwheels around Steve Nash for the better part of this entire series.
If he'd made one move, he would have done a cartwheel around it, right?
Well, the move that he made is like, we're not going to let Kevin Durant beat us. Let's see what you do, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah.
And Steve like, well, I got nothing. But here's the thing, Skip. Let's just say for the sake of argument, they changed coaches. Kyrie listening? Because he might be the most uncoachable guy there is in the NBA.
Agreed.
Because he didn't want to be in Cleveland.
No.
And LeBron, he left Cleveland, they went to the championship. He wanted to go run his own team. And Boston got to the Eastern Conference Finals without him. And now look at them since he's left. They're a much better team than when he left. Now, when Kyrie was out, it was just James Harden and KD. They had a 3-game lead in the East. They were the number 1 seed by 3 games. Until they made the fateful decision, you know what? Let's go ahead and let Kyrie play part-time.
Yep.
And then, boom, it went to hell in a handbasket. So for me, Skip, the question is, you can change the coaches, but let me ask you this. Are they going to listen? Because how arrogant must you be? How arrogant must you be to say publicly, to say out loud, we don't need a coach in a team sport? You think Magic Johnson would have ever said we don't need Riley? Jordan Kobe would have ever said we don't need Phil?
And by the way, Magic got the previous coach fired.
Got him fired. Because he didn't like the style that they tried to do. He's like, nah.
But then he pledged allegiance to Pat Riley.
Thank you.
And championships happened.
You say we don't need, you play a team sport. What team you know, Skip? What team sport you know don't have a coach, don't have a manager?
No.
I get in tennis, sometimes I think Roger Federer late in his career, he went without a coach. He went and I think Lucic is his guy now. But there's sometimes guys do in some sports, maybe golf, maybe tennis. You say, you know what?
Tiger's had a couple stretches where he went coachless, but it's an individual sport. It's different.
But a team?
No.
Oh, you know, one day Kevin might be the coach, the next day I might. Bro, what are you talking about?
Now, the great Bill Russell was a player coach, the greatest player coach, but he was playing and he was coaching.
Right.
Okay.
But it wasn't like he was just playing like, okay, well, who called the timeout? Well, that was Bill Russell's job.
And you don't think everybody followed what he said?
Exactly.
Yes.
So that my thing is, okay, you get rid of Steve Nash. Who are you going to bring in that Kyrie? I believe Kevin Durant's very coachable. I saw him in Golden State.
I would agree.
I believe Kevin Durant's very coachable. The question is, who will Kyrie allow to coach him? Because he seems to have all the answers. And for a guy as educated as he is, he says some of the most asinine things that I've ever heard, Skip Bayless. Talking about, well, you know, I probably became a distraction, you think.
Yeah.
What gave you that idea? What gave you that idea that you might have been a distraction?
Yeah.
But, yes, I think Steve Nash should go, but I'm not so sure if Kyrie's going to have the same ways about himself that he can just take off, have CTO choice time off. Skip, who does that? How you think? I cannot just go and not show up and don't call any of my bosses. Hey, man, well, you're supposed to be here today. Oh, man, something came up. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
What?
So, to your first point, obviously, Steve Nash was disqualified before he even sat down on the bench to coach a game. He was disqualified. We don't need a coach.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
Thank you. It was over.
I'm still not sure Steve Nash was the problem, but he definitely was not the solution.
Correct.
Definitely not the solution.
Right.
So, again, I'm with you. I can't dredge up a lot of emotion to say, fire this man today, like I can for Mike McCarthy. On the other hand, it is the way of the NBA world. It is the law of the NBA jungle that when it doesn't work, for whatever reason, there's only one guy that's expendable because you can't fire Kevin. You can't fire Kyrie.
Yeah, with those expectations.
Okay? You just say that guy.
Frankie V found that out, didn't he?
It's just some head has to roll for this. Somebody has to pay for the sins of everybody else.
Yes.
And it's just too easy to say, well, it's that guy.
Right.
Okay, so now let's walk carefully back to what just happened. Kyrie obviously would not get vaccinated. So they sent him home at first. Remember, they said, we don't want a part-time player.
Right.
You go home.
Right.
And guess what happened? They teetered, they struggled, and all of a sudden they caved. The whole organization caved and put Steve Nash in even further jeopardy because they crawled back to Kyrie and said, please come save us.
Right.
You can do whatever you want. If you can only play home games, great. We love you. Please come save us at the home games.
Right.
Well, now Steve Nash, whatever shred of credibility he had in the locker room, he just lost it. He lost everything. And here's the point about Steve Nash. I've been around him enough to know. I believe he's actually a very nice guy to a fault, where I don't think he strikes fear in any player that he coaches because he was a really great, I don't know if you call him a great, all he did is win back-to-back MVPs. That's pretty great. That doesn't happen often. No, it does not. So there's some grudging respect for him among these current players as a former player, but he's before them, and so I don't think Kyrie can really relate to what Steve Nash did. Right. But the point is, Steve Nash doesn't even strike any fear in any referees. He is the least confrontational coach in the league when it comes to referees. So it's not like he's going to berate a referee or he's going to draw a tech just to incite and inspire his own team. He doesn't do any of that. There's no showmanship to him. He just pretty much stands over there, and sometimes he shrugs and sometimes he rolls his eyes. But did you ever see him go after a referee? No. He just
that wasn't his playing style either.
Okay, it wasn't his playing style. So is he suited to be a fire starter of a head coach, a leader of men? Well, obviously, you can't lead those who refuse to be led to start with. So that's the first thing. Okay, so then Kyrie comes back, and this precipitates James Harden is already quitting on you anyway because he didn't like the whole state of affairs with Kyrie. And this precipitates him just saying, I'm finished. You got to get me out of here. Right. And they have to get him out because Kyrie, in the end, that was because Kyrie wouldn't get vaccinated.
Everything that happened was because of Kyrie, yes.
All right, so back to what Kevin said. Kevin gave a very half-hearted, lukewarm defense of Steve Nash last night. He was just kind of a shrugging like, well, he was dealt a crazy hand.
Yeah, you shuffle those cards, KD.
Okay. All right. Well, I buy that. Okay. So then here comes Ben Simmons back for James Harden, and he either couldn't or wouldn't play. I don't know which one it is. We're going to debate that in a few minutes here, but it's either couldn't or wouldn't.
It might have been both.
Okay, it might have been a little bit of both. Is it his back or is it his psychological state? I don't know for sure, but right now it's leaning towards psychological state. Well, the point is, your big three became a big two right before your very eyes.
Right.
You could have had a big three. I'm a big Ben Simmons fan. I'm going to say it one more time. Made Rookie of the Year, 3 straight All-Star teams, 2 straight first-team All-Defenses. Well, if you have that guy with that kind of resume and you can plug him in back at the trade deadline, if he comes right in the door and says, I'm ready to play basketball.
Right.
You know, I didn't like those guys, but I love you guys. I'm going to play.
Well, that's what everybody thought, Skip.
Okay, well,
we
did
got
too.
no indication that he had a back injury in Philly. We just had an indication that he didn't want to play for Philly, and he was sitting out until he got moved. And somehow he gets to Brooklyn and the damn back's out.
What?
I'm sorry, I'm not buying any of it. Okay, so Ben Simmons, big problem for Steve Nash because he just sits on the end of the bench styling out, you know? And he's like the biggest sore thumb in the history of the NBA. He just sticks out like a sore thumb because he's styled out.
And Skip, and maybe he has to do this because he's the coach, but I thought Steve Nash might have been his biggest supporter. He, at every turn, he's tried to say,
him?
he tried to say
Support.
all the right things.